I'm going to do a review on 5 wings that I've used extensively. The Gong Wing Plus 7 metre, the Duotone Echo 7 metre, the Duotone Unit 5 metre, the Nash S25 5.3 metre, and the Takuma Wing Ride 4 metre, but that's a version 1, the Takuma, and they've just released their version 3, so that one might not be quite so relevant for many people, but it's still there to put into context as to the amount of power and the handling for the different sizes. Okay, so starting off with the Gong Wing Plus 7 metre. I damaged it, it blew up. I fell on it doing a jibe and folded. As I landed on it, it bent the leading edge back, and it obviously put too much pressure on one of the seams of the leading edge, and it split apart here. It also carried the split all the way between the 2 window panels. I got it repaired, and it lasted for a good month or so of seriously heavy use. But then one day, just having inflated it while I was putting my leash on the beach, it literally exploded just sitting there. I can't blame Gong for that. I think it was probably the damage before caused the weakness. I have heard a lot of people saying online that Gong wings are bad quality. I wouldn't go that far. I would say they're good quality. I would, however, say that Duotone and Nash are much better quality. Anyway, this isn't really about that side of things. It's about about how I found the handling and performance of these wings. First, a little disclaimer. I'm not affiliated with any company. I have no business interest, no financial interests in any of these companies whatsoever. I'm not sponsored. I'm just a keen amateur, and I'm trying to just put forward my point of view, my opinions on these wings, what I've used them for. It's the type of thing that I would have found useful had the information been available when I was starting out about a year ago. So the Gong 7 metre, it's the Wing Plus. It's got 2 window panels on each side of the leading edge. The fact that they're split into 2 makes the visibility, well, it impairs it slightly. It's not great. And like any with an inflatable centre strut, that does block a lot of the visibility. When compared to the Echo or the original Duotone, because it's got the boom and not an inflatable strut, so much better visibility. The handles on the boom, on the Gong, you've got 3 handles. They're fairly wide, oval shaped. I call them firm but soft, covered with webbing. I would say that they're very comfortable. They're not floppy at all. They're quite sturdy. So when you're pumping, they don't allow your knuckles to rub against the centre strut. They do you can do a bit if you're really pumping in light winds, but for the most part they're very good. There's seven handles in total on this centre strut, and they are very, very well positioned, leading to a feeling of the wing being very, very balanced. In fact, the whole wing I thought was really well balanced, good power delivery, nice and smooth, good levels of low-end power, so it was quite easy pumping up in light winds. So it just felt a little bit heavy. I didn't notice that to begin with. This was my my first sort of wing that I used for the most part as a beginner, and I loved it as a beginner. It was great. It wasn't until well, this broke and I replaced it with this that I realised just how much better this was. I don't know the weights of them, but this one feels heavy in use. This one feels light as anything when in use, despite the weight of the boom. So that was a real pleasant surprise for me. So yeah, that was my first sort of issue with the gong, but it wasn't until later that I realised how heavy it was. In transitions, if you didn't get the movement and the position of the wing exactly right, it would tend to drop and make it a little bit difficult for picking it up on the new side. Okay, so in its low to mid power range, no complaints whatsoever. It handles really, really nicely. But as you get to its upper power range, as you're riding along, sheeted in, quite often a gust would cause the inflated leading edge to splay out, because the canopy just, well, the leading edge just wasn't stiff enough, wasn't strong enough. So you'd be going along and suddenly a gust would hit, and it would just bend outwards, causing all the power to spill, and you've got to sort of push the handles away from you to allow the leading edge to spring back into position, and then it was back to normal. And I thought that was pretty shoddy, really, from the point of view of all the brands that I've used other than the Gong. The leading edge just wasn't stiff enough. It wasn't sturdy enough to be able to cope with what I consider to be the normal wind range. And it wasn't like I was grossly overpowered. It was in normal riding conditions for that size wing. Okay, so the silver lining of the Gong blowing up on me was that I then went to buy the Duotone Echo 7 metre, and what an amazing wing it really is. I know that there's an issue people have about the boom as it fits onto the leading edge. It doesn't appear to fit properly for the diameter of the leading edge. Well, according to the Duotone rep, it's meant to be like that. The fact that this part of the boom actually causes an indent into the underside, if you like, of the leading edge, is what gives the boom its rigidity and stops the boom from slipping around. I've never had a single issue with movement or slippage of the boom. It just stays rock solid in position, and because it's so solid, it makes pumping, especially in light winds, light wind pumping is a dream. For a start, there's no centre strut here to rub your knuckles or scrape the skin. Because it's so rigid, it's 100% power transfer. If on some of the models the handles are a bit floppy, then it just feels like you're putting so much more energy in than is actually going into the pumping. The handle itself gives pretty much infinite hand positions, and the beauty is you don't have to look during transitions. You don't have to look for that handle. You just reach up and you just grab the boom and it's there. It's so nice. So riding one-handed is also really easy, and it's just beautiful. So if you're riding some swell and you're doing some S-carves or you're doing some really nice turns, then you can literally just ride it one-handed. You're turning back again for the carve, you're turning back again, and unlike other wings that have handles, you don't ever have that feeling that it's going to be pulled, that the leading edge is going to be pulled away from you. If you do, you literally just drop the boom through your hand just a few inches in an instant. You can go the other way in an instant, and it's not a problem at all. With handles, you've got to let go and then grab another handle, and quite often you might miss, or you might not grab it properly because you might grab in between the handles. So that, for me, it just really is one of the main benefits. I mentioned the window before, really good visibility, the best visibility out of any wing that I've ever had. Probably because of the pronounced dihedral shape, so if I try and show you, if you haven't seen it, the centre of the leading edge as it comes right down there, that, I'm told, gives it the properties of as you move it from side to side during a transition like a jibe or a tack, it just seems to move into place and is exactly at the right place for where you want it to be. Whereas some wings I've used, they tend to drop if it's not, like I said with the Gong. If you haven't moved it into, if it's not high enough or you're moving it across at the right time, it'll drop down and you end up having to, slow down, reach for it. Maybe it'll mess up the transition, but it certainly won't be as smooth. Okay, so there is also this tensioning line along here. So it connects onto the boom there and onto the leading edge there, and it's got these two pulleys. And something that I don't think they realised at the time, because it was just to tension the canopy, is that if you pull here, it depowers the wing slightly. Now I've tried it a few times, and because it's essentially a kite line, it's really, quite painful on the fingers. It does depower it a little bit, but not to the point where you're going to cut through your skin. So I have been told, or I've seen online, that some people put a plastic tube from a windsurfing harness line. You can, if it's, when the boom's not on there, you can slip it on through there. And that must make it much more pleasant to be able to do that. But to be honest, would I do that when I'm riding? I'm not entirely sure that I would. You can also lengthen the boom. Down here, on the Echo wings, they've printed the different boom lengths that you can have, and obviously the shorter the boom, the more power it will hold. The longer the boom, you're flattening out the canopy by giving it more tension, and therefore the less power, the more depowered it would be. And that makes a difference. I can't tell you how much, in terms of percentages, how much it depowers it, but it does seem to work to a certain extent. Again, that's something that only the Echo can do because of its boom. Okay, so back to the Echo. Couple of things that I'm not 100% happy about is the fact that there's only one handle on the leading edge. If they had a couple more that were offset from that centre handle, it would make it a lot easier to flip the wing over when it's on its back in the water. There is a little bit of flapping going on from the trailing edge just here and here when you're powered up and sheeted in. It doesn't seem to affect the performance or the handling. It's just a noise issue really, and until I got onto the Duotone Echo, where it has no flapping whatsoever, I didn't even realise it was much of an issue, but just thought I'd mention it. Okay, so the main point of why I love this wing so much is because of its smooth power handling and power delivery across the whole of its wind range. And it's a pretty big wind range as well. I can get going, as in come up onto the foil in 8 knots, and I have held on to it in 18, 19 knots. It was a bit of a handful. When you get over 16 knots, you really feel like you're hanging on. You've got to hold on to it using a lot of effort. But by no means was I feeling worried about being overpowered or being dangerous. So I think it's a very versatile wing, very smooth in its power delivery. Yeah, it is literally my favourite wing, and I wanted to buy the 5 metre, but unfortunately it wasn't in stock, and I was told it wouldn't be in stock for quite a long time due to over demand. But the unit was in 5 metre, so I got that, and I'll just go grab it. Okay, so hopefully you can see from the position of the two wings that it's got a very, very similar outline or profile to the Echo. Obviously, the main difference is that instead of a boom, it's got an inflatable centre strut, which if I put the wing to the side, you'll see has got this this unique curve to it. Now I'm sure that gives whatever properties they say it gives. I couldn't really say one way or the other. But what I can say is that I love this wing. In my mind, I was a little bit, I'm probably not going to like this because I love the Echo and its boom so much, but I'm willing to forgive it the fact it hasn't got a boom, because it's just such a good wing. It is so stable. It just feels, I mean, I said the Echo feels really well balanced. Well, this somehow feels even more balanced. The handles are positioned perfectly. The whole thing, it's got quite a long wingspan for a 5 metre, but you never notice it. I think I've caught the wingtips in the water once, and that was, you know, me messing around just trying to carve harder and harder and harder turns. It seems to fly like the Echo. The unit seems to fly really nicely in the air, minimal effort. You don't have to concentrate on lifting the wingtips up, not even with the 7 metre, even with such a big wingspan. It just seems to fly in the perfect position. The canopy itself is just beautifully tensioned. There's no flapping when you're when you're really powered up. At the moment I've sailed this from 12 knots up to 23 knots, and I would say that it's got a more powerful low end compared to, and I know it's 5 metre and that's 7 metre, but it just feels more powerful in its lower wind range. I didn't think I'd be able to get up onto the foil in 12 knots, but I can. And yeah, again, like I said, when you're overpowered on the 7 metre Echo, when you're in its top range of power for the unit, again, you feel like you're using a lot of effort to hang on to the wing, but it's so easy to control. I never once thought that I was out of control or worried at all. I've got to mention the handles. Like the Echo, it's got one handle in the centre of the leading edge, and it's got the usual duotone padded part so that you don't scrape your skin. And for a 5 metre, even though it's got quite a long wingspan, I never felt that I needed extra handles on the leading edge. It flips over really easily. But these handles here are by far and away the most comfortable handles I've ever used. They're round, they're, I suppose, a high density foam type material. I don't know the exact name, I'm afraid, but they are so comfortable. They've got just the right amount of flexibility, and you know, they're rigid enough. They're very, very comfy. You'll never get a blister from them, I don't think. They've got just excellent grip. And even though the Gong handles and the Takuma handles, I think they're perfectly okay. I don't mind the webbing covered handles. These are just way, way, way nicer. Obviously, the first handle is for your front hand, the third and the fourth handles for your back hand. The balance is just perfect. I've never felt like I needed extra handles. In fact, I prefer these, the fact that there are fewer of them and that they're wider. The Nash handles, there's about 9 of them on I don't know, 7, 8, 9 on the 5.3, and they're so small that every time you go in a transition to grab for the new handle, you've got to look, because inevitably you'll grab in between. There's so many handles, you've got to be so precise when you're grabbing the next handle. But with the unit, these handles are just beautiful. I very rarely have to look to see where I'm grabbing. It's so intuitive. It always seems to be, like the Echo, always seems to be in the right place at the right time, very forgiving in transitions, moves from one side to the other with ease. So yeah, the handles I think are the best on the market, but I suppose that's totally up to your own preference. Okay, now the rest of the video is going to be from a recording I did a few days ago, and the reason why I've redone these two is because there was a lot of building work going on at the time, a lot of noise, you can hardly hear a thing. Since then I've actually sold the Nash 5.3, so I can't do another video with it anymore, but I'm hoping that the quality will be acceptable. I apologise for any undue noise. Okay, so over to the next lot of video. Okay, so a few things that I forgot to mention in the first recording about the Duotone Unit. First of all, when luffing the wing, holding it by the handle on the leading edge, it is super stable. Out of all the wings that I've tried, this is the most stable. Now, I haven't tried the Ozone Wasp, and I've only used the F1 swing wing a few times, never had the opportunity to hold it by the handle. I've been told that those two are also excellent in terms of luffing, but to my mind, I don't see how you can get more stable than the Unit. It was literally just, I was holding it there was no rolling to the side, there was no flapping around whatsoever. I even, at one point, I even held it by the end of the webbing strap there, and again, it was just super stable, parked so nicely that I could just forget about it and get on with surfing. The other things to mention that I forgot before. Now, the windows are probably the same size, I think, as the windows on the Echo, but because you've got this inflatable centre strut, it does block the windows considerably. The windows are on the small side. For the Echo that doesn't matter, but for this one it's a bit of a pain. I mean, they're better than nothing, but you do have to move it to be able to see downwind to make sure that there's nothing in your way before turning. So you're either raising or lowering it just to be able to see through. The Nash S25, the windows go out, possibly out to here, and you do get a much better view. Okay, so the other thing to mention on the Unit is the profile. So if you can see there, the dihedral is not as pronounced as the Echo, but there's much more of a dihedral shape than the Nash and the Takuma, and quite a few other wings. To my mind, that is probably what gives it that beautiful mix of being really easy to move from side to side across for transitions, and still being really stable when luffing the wing. So that's really nice. And the last thing that I should say about it is it's got this feature here, if you can see, a nice big dump valve which you can unplug, and it really speeds up deflation of the centre strut. The centre strut itself is connected to the leading edge by this. It's a pretty good diameter tube. I mean, I've heard that some are very narrow and makes deflation quite difficult. No problems here, probably because of the dump valve more than this, but I just want to point out that there's no clip, so you can't isolate the two bladders. So if one goes, presumably it will deflate. Okay, hopefully that's everything that I forgot the first time round. Now carrying on with the okay, so the Nash. You can probably tell fairly quickly that it's got a different outline shape. Pretty much a continual curve all the way from wingtip to wingtip, to the point where the wingtips are actually slightly closer together there than the outermost part of the wing. So the wingtips are not the widest part of the wing. It seems to be much deeper in the bottom section because the stats of these two, okay, I'm calling this a 5 metre, 5.3, but comparing the stats of the Duotone Echo 5 metre and the Nash 5.3, the Unit 5 metre is 3.5 metres wingtip to wingtip inflated. The S25 5.3 is 3.1 metres wingtip to wingtip. So there's 0.4, 40 centimetres difference there. The distance from the top of the leading edge tube, the front, sorry, of the leading edge tube, all the way to the end of the centre strut on the Unit is 2.03 metres to be exact, and the S25 is 1.97. So weirdly, the 5.3 has a narrower wingspan and a narrower or a shorter depth. How that works, I'm assuming it's got something to do with the way the material is curved. So yeah, you can see that it is, or can you see? It's slightly taller, and from the edges you might be able to see the sides of the unit slightly further out than the sides of the Nash. Okay, how about the Nash then? It feels super lightweight, like the Duotone units. They both feel really lightweight. The Nash somehow just feels really mega light in when it's flying. The weight just seems to totally disappear, and it almost feels too light, because this is one of my gripes. I'm sorry if you're a Nash fan. I've used a lot of Nash equipment over the years. I've got nothing against Nash, but this one just does not suit me. And I'll tell you why. I'll try and point out the good parts as well as what I don't like. Build quality, I think, is excellent. You might not be able to tell, but Kevlar reinforcing. Literally, there's a panel here, which I think is a superb idea. The Takuma, you'll see, version 1, has got full Kevlar cover reinforcement from there downwards, which adds so much to the weight. Like most of the wings, they've got the partial sort of webbing or material tape to reinforce the seams. So the build quality, I think, is superb. It's really lightweight, and it's got great, tension. Is it leech tension? I don't know. The canopy is just, there's no creasing, no folds. A little bit of flapping in high winds, but I don't think it detracts from the performance. I've got to say it though, the unit, no flapping whatsoever, not even a flutter. It's so solid and sturdy, the canopy. Okay, the handles, I have a big bugbear about the Nash handles. I mean, come on, Nash, everything is so well thought through on their wings, but the handles, can you see how narrow, flat these handles are? When your hands grip something, it's either oval or round. It's not flat like that. And the webbing, again, I don't know if you can see, but the webbing sort of moves around on it. Look at that, they're just so, to my mind, I wouldn't say flimsy, but there's no rigidity to them whatsoever. So and they're so small, I can only just get my hands in them. So when you're pumping, you're gonna, rub your hands, your knuckles against there, and it comes away feeling like you've lost a kilo of skin, or okay, exaggeration. Plus side, they do have these, 3 of these Velcro things here. If you want to put a paddle for whatever reason, it's not a deal breaker, because you could quite easily get your own 3 bits of Velcro if you really wanted to do it and your wing doesn't have them. The windows. Okay, pros and cons about the windows. The windows are a good size. They have to be a good size, in my opinion, if you have a centre strut, an inflatable centre strut, because this impairs a lot of the potential. It blocks a lot of the window. So you've got reasonable vision with these ones. I forgot to say, on the unit, the windows, they're a bit on the small side for having an inflatable centre strut. It's better than no windows for sure, but really you don't get a hell of a lot of vision. You have to move it to be able to see what you want to see. The Echo, the windows are unbelievable. Unbelievably good, because you don't have the inflatable centre strut, you've just got the boom, which doesn't impair your vision whatsoever. And you've got the clearest view. It's like you've got one giant window, and I've never actually had to move the wing up or down to be able to see where I want to see. Okay, It's nice that the 5.3 has got these two offset handles. Obviously they all have the centre one. I don't think they're necessary though on the 5.3. It flips over so easily. The wingspan isn't long enough for it to need these. I'm not complaining that it's got them, I'm just saying I don't think it's necessary. Now, I bought this one before I bought the unit because I read so many reviews that were praising this, saying how stable it was, the wind range, especially the top end, was excellent, pumps well. I agree it pumps well, but I'm not so impressed with the bottom end. It doesn't have much grunt. You can compensate by pumping a lot, but then by pumping you're gonna have the problem with your hands scraping against the centre strut. My biggest issue with the usage of it is that it feels skittish, and I use the word skittish in a way that's not unstable, but it's constantly doing this in the gusts, and I don't know, it just feels too light, and it feels, like I say, skittish. So it may be my lack of experience, it may be that this particular wing, the style of how it should be ridden, doesn't suit my style. It may be that I'm using it wrong, but I don't like it. Sorry Nash, I've still got some of their kit, and I love it. Over the years I've used a lot of Nash stuff, and I rate it, but this one, good bit of kit if it suits your style. Anything else? Goes upwind well, very, very high levels of apparent wind. In other words, you'll go really fast. It generates more speed than there is wind, if that makes any sense. I was speeding along, feeling the wind in my face, thinking this is brilliant. The wind's picked up, superb. Went for a jog, fell in, and could hardly get back up on the foil. And I thought I was alone, but now I realised that it's just when I got back up again next, and the same thing happened. It was like, okay, now I know what they mean by apparent wind. So I would rather have a wing that it gives you the speed that the wind sort of you would consider. Okay, it's this windy, I'll get that amount of power and speed from my wing. This one, you don't get as much low end power, but you get more power once you're up and going. It's weird, and I just didn't like it. Anyway, there we go. Let's see if they stay up. If they don't, I will move them. Okay, now the Takuma. Okay, I hope you can see. To me, the outline shape of the Takuma, this is Takuma Wing Ride version 1, 4 metre, is a very similar continual curve from wingtip to wingtip compared to the Nash. Can you see that? They're not perfectly aligned, but I think you can see that. Nash tapers down at the wingtips considerably, the Takuma doesn't. The Takuma has the Kevlar literally from here all the way down on both sides, which is superb, especially if you want to use it on land, on tarmac or concrete, maybe with a skateboard or something, but it's not going to get damaged there. But if you're just using it on the water, it adds weight. However, my personal opinion, this is a 4 metre. Here, I rarely get to use a 4 metre, it's rarely that windy. But when I do use it, I'm so powered up anyway that the extra little bit of weight doesn't bother me. If I was somewhere really windy, I probably would, if I was using a 4 metre a lot, I would probably try and sell this and get a unit 4 metre, or maybe the Echo. But yeah, so what else about the Takuma? The handles. Only one on the front, not really a problem, doesn't need any more. The handles, I think, are the same material that the Gong handles are made of, but they're not quite so widely spaced. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 handles on here, 7 handles on there. You can see that they're just slightly narrower. I mean, I keep saying I've got big hands. I don't have a problem getting my hand in at all, but there's no sort of space for moving like there is in those, and I think that makes them a little bit more comfortable. They're certainly more comfortable than these Nash handles. The valve is the same system as the Gong. They've all got their pros and cons. I'm not going to go into that. It's also got the 3 Velcro bits for a paddle if you want. The windows, same material, feels like anyway, the same thick material that the Nash windows are made of. And I've heard that they could have potential problems if you fold them and put them in a bag. Then they could permanently crease and crack or cause holes, whatever. Nash, having the excellent service that that I've certainly experienced from them over the years, they've come up with a solution by everybody who's bought a Nash S25 is being given free of charge one of those sausage bags, the tube-shaped bags. So you don't have you can roll up from the sides and then fold under the window, so the window isn't creased or folded, I should say, when you're storing it in the bag. I don't think Takuma are doing that. I think their version 2 and 3 don't have windows anyway, so why would they? But the windows being really wide are very effective because, like I say, the centre strut impairs the view, blocks the view of some of the window. So I just really like the fact that they're wide. That's good. Yeah, to me it's my least used wing, so I know it the least. But I can remember from the times I've used it that it's very stable. It's got smooth power delivery. It seems to have good low and high ends. I've used it mainly sort of 18 to 26 knots. I feel like I could hold it in up to 30 knots. I never have, but that's what I feel like I could do. The Nash I've held in 27, 28 knots and felt like, it was a gusty day, but still I felt like I'd been pounded. This one and the unit just felt so much more smooth in the power delivery. I dare say it's not as powerful as the new versions, but like I say, I don't use it enough to warrant upgrading it at the moment. Anything else to say? Not that I can think of. Okay. If I've forgotten anything, or if anyone has any questions that I haven't covered, or if you just think I'm wrong and you want to correct me on something, feel free to leave a comment. I'll try and reply to them as quick as I can. But yeah, the main thing that I wanted to try and get across is because it's so difficult to know what kit is right for you, what style suits you best. I've tried to just be as honest and as open as I can about my likes and dislikes to give people the benefit of my experience. Although compared to other people, that's very limited experience, I know. Okay. Any last thing I can think of? Not at the moment. I'll put it as a side note. I'll put all dimensions, type them out on the description. Other than that, thanks for listening, and I hope it's useful. Have fun. Cheers.